Alright guys, this past weekend, I decided to coach every single region of solo cash cups. It took me 15.5 hours straight, starting with OC in the morning and then finishing with NA Central at 5 AM in the middle of the night. It took me an insane amount of time. And the worst thing was, it was a terrible video. Everybody kept on milking, they kept on doing bad plays, they kept on just messing up peel off and things like that. And there was not that many wins, only 3 wins in 15 hours. So I thought, what better idea to do than giving you guys a bunch of mid wins and just bad plays and stuff like that. Let's do a full solo guide. This video is going to be the ultimate solo guide for getting earnings, for getting through opens, for just winning ranked games. Everything is going to apply in this one video, and it's genuinely packed with so much information in this one video. So please leave a like. If you haven't already, go check out the Solos Masterclass. Genuinely, the results from the Solos Masterclass this season have been the best ever, and there's still 2 cash ups to go. Only $30, and you can very easily make 100 back if you win a game this season. And the amount of players who've won a game is ridiculous. I'll leave some results up on screen, but it's been kind of crazy. Go check out the Solos Masterclass, and let's get straight into this with early game. And please leave a like if you enjoy. All right, guys, probably the most important and overlooked part of a solo tournament is having a good drop spot. And I'm not just going to recommend a bunch of spots, but I'd recommend choosing a spot that works for you. So let's say you're a player who's not that confident at fighting, you don't really want to get into too many fights. I recommend going for an edge map split drop. If you're somebody that likes getting into fights, I would run somebody like a POI, somewhere more mid map where you can have better rotates and things like that, and you can obviously get into fights if you want to, or if you need to. However, right here, this is such an important thing that Bushy does, is he gets information. You see, just before he lands, he does that little 360 and he looks around. That is so important. That little bit of extra scouting information on who and what is around him is really important. He knows Underworld is super busy, he probably doesn't want to go over there. He knows that this building right here isn't actually having somebody land at it straight away, so he can maybe quickly go over there. Just really important information. Making sure that you have freedom in what you're going to do next is so crucial. So now he's going to go ahead and get some quick mats from this, going to get 100 HP on the slope truck, and now because he has that freedom of knowing what's going on around him, he knows what's going on. As you can see here, he just spotted somebody gliding in over the back of that building. He's going to do a quick play and he's going to get a nice free elim as well as a load of extra loot to himself. With this, gets this. Now he's going to push straight over to this other player and just take 50-50. And this is such a good 50-50 to take because this other guy has just landed. He's got absolutely nothing. And Bush is pushing over. He's got mat advantage. He's got loot advantage. He's got shield advantage. He's basically got every advantage you could hope for. Really free fight to get. And now with Siphon back in the game, you also get a little bit of HP back every single time you get an elim. So those 50-50 fights are sometimes sort of worth it. Then, of course, since he's got this whole place to himself and he's got a load of different options, take a look what he does. He's basically just going to run around, get as much of this free loot in this area to himself, and try to get as many scraps as he can, which is really good. If you guys aren't the most confident fighter, right, I would recommend doing a spot just like this. It allows you to have so many different options of what you're doing. And of course, he's got the dashes, so he can basically just insta disengage if he needs to from any type of fight. Now, once you've gone ahead and just got your initial loadout, this is what you want to be trying to aim for. So Gatekeeper obviously is by far the strongest gun in the game, as well as some type of spray weapon that fits your playstyle. Right? Stark Rifle isn't the best in solos. I'd recommend just going for an AUG in most cases or a Strike AR. And then prioritize getting metal. You guys can get wood and brick everywhere. We'll come back onto this later. Prioritize getting as much metal, even if it's really bad harvesting metal, right here, something like 7 metal per swing. It is so important because you're not going to be able to farm up your metal later on in the game. It's really crucial that you just prioritize getting as much metal as you can. And also Bushy does a very nice strat. Don't know if you guys caught that, but he's actually baiting out that this bunker didn't spawn by breaking everything here. So people aren't as likely to go for it. It means he can potentially get a free bunker without even need to fight anybody for it. It's a really good strat to do. Right here, we've run into a very awkward situation. I'm sure you guys have happened to this in the cash cup once or twice, where you sort of run into somebody and you get too close to somebody and you don't actually want to fight them, right? Like you're kind of just forced into a fight. You don't actually want to fight them. What I would recommend doing, and this is so important, so you're not just wasting games or getting yourself griefed, is instantly make a load of space. So use a bunch of brick, make a 2x1 or something like that. Try to avoid taking damage. So do not do dumb peaks and things like that. And just let the other player disengage. I can't tell you guys how important it is so that you just build up a couple boxes, you waste, 100, 200 brick maybe, and you let the other player disengage, because 9 times out of 10, this other player doesn't want to start a massive fight and just do a big box fight in the middle of zone when everybody else is around them, and they're just going to disengage. And this is so important, guys. If you suck at fighting, you don't even need to be good at fighting this. Just learn to quickly rebox, learn to not do dumb peaks, and then you're going to be able to refarm your wood and brick. And that's basically how you avoid the majority of mid-game fights. There's really no reason to take a mid-game fight in solos, even in opens the majority of the time, unless you want to try dropping the bomb or something. It's much better to just box up, let the other player disengage, let the other player maybe aggro you, and you can just do a nice peek to prevent them from hitting you, and then carry on your way. You can farm back your wooden brick really easily. You can get a full loadout like Bushy's got now. He's got mid kits, bigs, fizz as well for rotate, and he's going to save his dashes for the rest of the game and basically have a perfect game from here on out. The only thing he really needs to do is try to find a bit more metal, which is why he's rotating deep into Nitro Dome right here. And this brings me on to my next point, which is how to prioritize getting early rotates. One thing you guys should always do after around the second or the third zone is figure out where the zones are going to be centering on. So as you can see right here, all of these top sort of areas are closing in, and it's obviously just going to be a Nitro Dome sort of mid-map end game. So you need to prioritize getting deep into those positions so you can go ahead and not have to rotate too much later on. Get away from the congestion, which is what Bushy's done very nicely. He's got away from this congested side where all these players are positioned, and now he's in a spot where he can run around, farm up all of his metal, and then box up without taking any damage. He's also got cactus he can use if he does get shot once or twice, but you can see he's able to get cap metal, he's able to get a really good zone position, and now he doesn't have to move until the partial zone basically. He can just box up at any position here and it'll be completely fine. He doesn't have to move until that 6th zone, which is so important. It allows him to save all of his shield, all of his dashes, and get himself into an absolutely godly position. All right, next up, and this is a really important one for having success in solos, is going for the loot island. I'm not talking about just full send going for it every single game. That's not really realistic, but the main reason why you want to go deep on zones early, I'll leave a link on screen to where you can find all the loot island spawns in the current season, but the main reason why you want to go for this loot island is because it allows you freedom for rotates. Exactly like earlier during the the off spawn part of the game, having freedom is so crucial to having success in solos. And Bush right here, he just full sends up the zip line, which again is a pretty risk-free trade just because of bullet drop and there's only one person shooting you normally, and he goes ahead and just claims the island. But even if you don't claim the island, just getting up on the island itself, right, and building a load of boxes around on these god bricks. Each one of these bricks is like an insane amount of actual builds that you can place. You can maybe box the pad, you can maybe box the pad over on this side, so that allows you to have free rotates, or even just sitting down on the rifts when they spawn. It takes like a minute for them to spawn on 4th zone, is a really good play, mainly because the partial zone later on, you can basically bypass the entire partial zone, which is an insane advantage in terms of mats, in terms of positioning, in terms of getting towards dead side of the partials. It is such a good play to do. That is why I think Loot Island is one of the most overlooked things. You do see pros going for this a lot, but most beginner level players or just people trying to get their first earnings aren't confident enough to go for the Loot Island, especially if you can claim the flag, especially if you can get extended map gatekeepers, getting an absolutely decked out spray weapon so you can beam people really easily, get easier refreshes, is a massive confidence boost, and it's going to really help you with getting earnings in solos and just having better games overall. Alright, so this right here is exactly why you want to go for the Loot Island. If you look at Bushy's mats, as you can see, he's been able to refarm his wooden brick really easily. Again, never use metal until way deeper into the end game, because you can always refarm your wooden brick, which is what he's done. He's got 146 builds, 93, 103, 64. He's just got an insane mat advantage early on into the game, which is going to allow him to have way better refreshes and things like that later on. And then, of course, he's going to wait for the last second to hit this pad. And the main reason he's waiting for the last second is for the zone to expand. You can see everybody else is already going in. They're going to end up on this congested side of the zone where there's going to be like 40 players right there. But instead, what Bushy's going to do is tap his fizz, go flying into the air. He's still got 2 of his dashes. He accidentally used 1, and he's going to get into a really good position as he lands. He does take a little bit of damage, but that damage trade-off is completely worth it, because now, of course, he's going to be able to just pop bigs. He's not taking any damage this whole game pretty much so far, and he's going to start doing his next rotate, which of course is going to be extremely free. No matter where this zone goes, look at the advantage that Bushy has compared to all these other players in this congested side. He's got nobody within about 20 meters of him, so like 6 or so tiles within him. He also has loads of really good sightlines, mainly because he decided to land up on this hill, so all these people down here can't even shoot him when he rotates. And as this next zone pops, take a look at how he rotates this. You could think, oh, he can just run in a box right there. However, that's not actually the best spot to get to, as you can see. What you want to try to do whenever you can is to get to the highest layer possible, especially since right now we're in a basically no mobility meta. There's only really fizz and dashes, which of course you should always be trying to get both of those. And this means that when he gets into this really good position, he's just going to very passively box up. He's not going to try to play for height or anything crazy. He's just getting into this really solid position. It's way better than being down there, even though that is of course in zone, might be a little bit cheaper on the mats. This is going to save him mats in the long term because of how free it is to rotate from a high layer. You can just fizz, you can just jump out, you can just dash out. It's such a good rotate no matter where the zone pulls right here. All right, now guys, we are actually into a hard rotate right here. And I'm just going to quickly do something. I'm just going to pause the video right here. And I want you guys to type how and, you know, exactly what you would do on this rotate. Like, this is a tough rotate, right? There's a lot of people ahead of him. There's even people behind him. There's so many people that can hold him right here. There's obviously some terrain he can maybe use, but this is a tough rotate. And keep in mind, he's got dashes. He's also got a fizz that he can use. Just type in the comments what you would do for this rotate. Honestly, how accurate you guys are. And whoever gets the best sort of guess of what to do, I'm going to give them a free masterclass, just as a giveaway thing. I want to see what you guys would actually do on this rotate. And I'll explain what Bushy did and why it was so successful. Okay, so the main thing with any type of rotate is identifying your main threat, so who's like the most likely person to grief you and chop you out and things like that, and waiting for them to go or for them to do something. So right here, the main threat for Bushy isn't actually this other player behind him, even though mainly because this guy's being very passive. He's obviously just like, oh shit, I've got a really bad rotate, right? The main threat for Bushy is this guy in front of him. So what Bushy does is he waits for this guy to go. As you can see, the guy's shooting, he's being active a lot, he's waiting for this guy to go, and then he's also going to try to pressure this guy to build a little bit, right? So now there's even more angles that Bushy's covered from. Maybe this guy get looks at, as you can see, and he even tries to get some damage onto the player right here. Normally, I'd recommend not shooting, you know, on a rotate, but if you can get free damage on somebody who's being active and actually just slow them down so they have to pop heals and stuff, that's always a good play. And now we're actually into this rotate. So what Bushy does very nicely is he scouts behind him, he's making sure this guy's going, and whenever you see that fizz sort of animation or hero fizz pop, that means the other guy's just going to go, he's not going to shoot you. So Bushy does the exact same thing. He fizzes and then he True-Lex ramps. This is such an important strat that you guys need to do. True-Lex is the guy who does the True-Lex bases, you know, it's really big surge bases that you see all around in duos and things. And this is another strat that he does, which is basically just doing a ramp up with a fizz, so you don't take full damage. And what you do is you basically just go as high as possible until you get chopped, and then you use a dash. So the dash gives you movement acceleration, and as you can see, even in slow motion here, it is such hard shots for somebody to hit on you as you do that dash. Then, as you land, even though he could potentially pop and heal, what he does is he slides and then there's a jump. So you get even more movement acceleration. You maintain that sort of acceleration that you've got. It's very hard to get hit as you do this. And then finally, he pauses as he comes into zone right here and he builds metal. This is when you should be using your metal. When you're in a congested layer, you're not on the best position, like he's down on low ground, and there's a lot of other people around. Invest your metal so you don't get fought. And he also does a very good play, which is just holding his wards for a second, making sure nobody's shooting him before he starts popping his heals. As you can see, he's making sure nobody's spraying him, nobody's looking at him, and then he's going to pop his heals finally in a second. Again, very tough rotate right there, but Bushy did everything correct. He waited for the biggest threat to go. He got some shots on him. Then he did the perfect rotate choice. He had really good movement. He invested a dash, right? Dashes are always worth using to save you mats and shield and things like that. And then he went ahead and didn't get himself focused or box fought as he got into the end of zone right here. And even though he's not in the best spot right now, he does have very good options for getting out of here with that dash and using that on first moving. All right, guys, let's talk about moving zones in depth. This is something that people struggle with, and the main reason I think most people just suck at moving zones is they're trying to do too much and they're not creating downtime for themselves. And what I mean by creating downtime is basically just having time in an endgame where you can just sit in a box and just look around. You can just do 360s, you can look for refreshes maybe, but you're not doing anything, you're not rotating, you're not actually actively shooting anybody. Instead, you're just getting information and thinking and planning out what's going on. This is something that players like Tayson and Seti and things are really good at. I'm obviously not comparing Bushy to them, but Bushy is also very good at doing this. As you can see right here, what Bushy is doing is letting absolutely everybody rotate past him, right? He's not shooting anybody, he's not getting himself griefed. All he is doing is letting all these other players behind him and back here on zone, letting all of them rotate completely for free. And you're going to notice when he decides to go at his box is the last possible second. This is so important. You can see he taps Fizz, he waits his zone to like basically be on him. You can even wait a second more, but basically just waiting for there's nobody behind you, so you can't get shot on the back by some idiot with the gatekeeper, and then you're going to rotate completely for free. And the main reason why this timing is so important is, as you can see right here, I'll zoom in, is now from the box that Bushy was just in, he can rotate in one motion and get into the end of zone, compared to everybody else that has rotated early and then they boxed up again, then they get in. They're wasting so many materials. However, Bushy right here, he's going to rotate completely for free. He makes sure to use wood as he rotates to block off angles and not take damage, and he also invests his dash just to make sure he saves even more materials. And now if you look at all of his builds right here compared to 7 builds, 6 builds, 30 builds, 84 builds, he's got an insane amount of builds compared to most players in this lobby, unless they maybe just got a refresh, right? And then what does he do? He's got 15 seconds of downtime, and what he's going to do in the downtime is just sit in his box and just look through his cone and get information. He wants to figure out who's on height, which skin is it, what's going on the height, is the guy stacked, is the guy shambles, is the guy getting looked at, who's this guy, what's he doing looking at height and things like that. He's just getting so much information during this downtime, and this whole period of downtime, he's just thinking. Also, very nice play. As zones about to swap, he pre-fizzes, so if he wants to insta-rotate, if he wants to do something instantly, he can do that. He has the option for that. It's always a good play to get in the habit of doing. Then he's going to keep scouting. Look, 25 seconds maybe of downtime right here where he's just been sitting and scouting. And then he's going to go ahead and tap his fizz before he leaves his box. Scouts out again. Really important that he taps fizz early enough so he can scout again. And this scouting right here, like literally like 30 seconds straight of scouting, is going to allow him to find this refresh, because again, he's going last second, so there's nobody behind him. Look, there's nobody further back on zone than him. So now, as he comes out his box, he's going to run to somebody that's going a second early, gatekeeper shot, pieces the guy up very simply, and he very quickly gets all the loot, gets the med kits for heal off, and he's going to continue rotating forward. Let's talk about the rest of this game, but that was genuinely one of the best rotates that he could have done in that situation, and that you guys should always be trying to do. Create downtime for yourself by giving yourself more options. And then right here, he just uses wood on his rotate, pauses in brick, reloads his guns, keeps on scouting at information, taps fizz again, and he's going to continue rotating. And he also does a very good job of not like transitioning layers like crazy. Like right here, he doesn't want to go up layers like crazy, he doesn't want to go down layers like crazy. He's just going to stay on a very similar layer and actually get into the end zone very effectively. And again, exact position right here, he's creating downtime, he's scouting out height, he's seeing what's going on. And this is where he executes probably one of the best solo plays that you guys can do in this current season, which is a height flank. So let me explain this in a bit more detail. All right, so right here, this is exactly how to do a height flank. So as you can see, High Ground is having a lovely time. He's jumping around his fizz, he's got his mythical, he's got his scan coin. He thinks he's guaranteed gonna make $100 this game. However, zone pulls straight back, which is kind of what you don't want to happen when you're up on height, because it means people mid ground can recycle their tarps. And of course, you can just run along your tarp right here, but something can happen where players can flank you, and I'll explain exactly how. So the main aspect of this is whenever moving zones play straight back across like this, High Ground is obviously just going to run across their builds or maybe try to get up onto their old builds, and you can go directly underneath. So let me explain how Bushy did this, and that's kind of the how, or you know, why can it happen and when can you do it, but how do you actually execute it? So what you want to do is do an up and over rotate. If you guys ever watched BloodX, maybe coaching Click something, he always does these type of rotates. They're very effective in solos. It's basically tapping a fizz and then going out to the back of your box, you know, towards Storm, as you can see right here. So going towards Storm, not just going front side, and then going up and over all of these builds, as you can see. So as you can see, Bushy does this exactly. He goes up and over, and he very quickly gets underneath height. And this is where it's really important to just pause for a second, right? Don't just full send it because your fizz is going to run off. Instead, pause for a second, let this other guy do whatever he's trying to do, and then re-tap fizz, as you can see. So Bushy, he re-taps his fizz, and he's going to do the exact same thing. And the main reason that you want to pause is obviously you got your fizz applied again, but also High Ground sort of forgets about what's going on, right? High Ground is now, you know, worried about this other player. He's not worried about the potential height flank that Bushy's trying to do. And Bushy does the exact play. He gets straight underneath height, and there's a really nice play, which is just having fizz on is so broken for going for height, because it allows you to just jump, side jump, ramp, walls, all sorts, and get above the other player. And now you're above the other player, it's very hard for them to do anything. And this guy just absolutely milks this game with the scan coin and everything, and he just falls off height because of the, you know, pressure of somebody flanking his height. He couldn't handle it, and he lost the game. But even if somebody doesn't do that, you guys have a very easy time of just pressuring them down once you're above them. And of course, the insane mat advantage Bushy has this endgame is really crucial. And then once he's up on height, what does he do? He invests some armored walls, so people won't even look up, so some armored floors. You could make an argument for saving these for later, but I'm personally a big fan of just using them early and making sure nobody can even think about chopping height. Like, if somebody does look up, like this guy who just got the scan coin, if the guy does look up, he's just going to see a load of armored. He's not going to look back here at the wood. He's just going to see the armored and not even think about height, because there's no way he can take it. And now, all Bushy needs to do is use some more armored and keep spraying. And he also layers down, so he's not super high up. Obviously, at this point in time, zone keeps pulling far, so people can't really flank Bushy. As you can see, it's very hard to flank this High Ground, especially because Bushy's doing the correct thing, which is tarping on the right-hand side of zone. So he's tarping along the right here, and then spraying down on the right-hand peak, so it's very hard for himself to get beamed, and also gives him a good angle just to constantly spray these other players below him and keep up with that pressure. He's also just going to keep tapping fizz, so if somebody does try to come up, he can, you know, jump shotgun, or he won't get chopped easily. Just very simple things that he's doing right here. Keep tapping fizz, keep pressuring his AR, keep tarping on the right hand side of the zone. It's actually a very underrated thing, just tarping on the right like this, because this peak is so good for pressuring. He can see everybody, you know, in the game and just spray them constantly. There's no chance he gets awareness checked, which is kind of what happens to the other guy in height. He was just harping over the center of the zone, and that allowed him to get flanks. It's a big misplay by that guy, and it's what Bushy does really well to keep pressuring. Keeps tapping Fizz so he can't get chopped. And now, because he's not taken any ticks, all he needs to do is secure the heal off. So what he does is he stops pressuring and lets these other guys do whatever they're trying to do. He lets them, you know, fight, lets them get refreshes. All he needs to do is just use all of his materials. And this is where having that insane amount of metal, so getting that cap metal early, saving it throughout the game, only using it where you need to, is so important, because this is impossible for somebody to chop, even if they have like a god AR, like a mythic org, and all he needs to do is just run back along these builds, and he's got himself $300. And just quickly for heal offs, if you guys suck at heal offs and you keep losing them, what you need to do is stack your med kits. So whichever stack of med kits you're popping, use 3 of them and then drag the other stack into that stack. And then of course, if you've got floppers or maybe a cactus or maybe chug splashes, you save that for storm sickness. But normally, if you've got 6 meds and you haven't taken any ticks like Bushy hasn't this game, what you're going to do is just win the game from, you know, having 6 meds. The other guy has got absolutely no chance, especially because he's early using splashes. There's no chance this guy wins because he's using splashes, he's running around. Just no hope for him down on the mid ground. He runs out of meds and he dies to storm sickness. Unfortunate. And that's how Bushy got $100. And that is my full solo guide. If you guys are interested in more solo guides, I know I waffled a lot during this video, but I hope it was informative for you. Then go check out the Solos Masterclass. Again, it is, I'm not trying to flex, but it is genuinely the best thing for getting earnings and just getting good at the game. And there's been so many people this season that have DM'd me earning multiple times, hitting 1K earning, getting their first earnings. So many examples like that from people. And I really recommend you guys check it out. It's only $30 and it's going to give you a massive improvement. And make sure, again, you leave your comment down below. I will be doing a free masterclass down below in the comments as well. All right, in a bit, guys. Appreciate watching the video. And go check out this one on fighting and this other one on something else I can't remember. But in a bit, guys.